I've spent a few decades being obsessed with linking data. One of the first projects in the early 90s was called NORA, Non-Obvious Relationship Awareness. We built this first system for the Las Vegas gaming industry, where they wanted to be able to combine data from all these different sources, both good guy data sources in the green buckets and subjects of interest in the red data sources. Notice this one here, self-exclusionary list, is people with gambling addiction problems, and they would want to know if they're doing business with them because they don't want to, because they've tried to opt out. And so they're trying to locate them and remove them. And so the purpose of this linking data project, which was my second one actually, was about generating alerts and figuring out who you're doing biz with. In here, by the way, for example, our regulatory exclusion lists, you have people like this that use completely different names. So one of the things you're dealing with in linking data is fabricated lies. And then there's all the other stuff you might expect, like name variations, Beth and Elizabeth, month and days transposed and dates of birth, messy addresses, and so on. In this project, by the way, I dusted off some original numbers. When we ran their data sets, we found 24 members of their loyalty club who were on industry watch lists. 23 members of their loyalty club were people they'd already arrested. 12 of the employees were in the loyalty club. By policy, they weren't supposed to be players. They had 192 employees who were related to vendors. And more interestingly, there were 7 employees who didn't know the vendor, but they actually were the vendor. None of these mean they were bad, but each of these would be an area where if you're going to spend some finite resources, you'd use this linking data project to do that. One more example coming up to more modern times is a linking project for ericstates.org. Today it runs voter registration modernization for 2/3 of America. The challenges in linked data here is in voting, a lot of people move from state to state, but who remembers to unregister? So here you have somebody that last voted in Maryland in 2012, and here you have a voter, Bob Jones, who's last voted in 2016, and the question is, are they the same people? Did they move? And if you look at the data here, it's inconsistent. How would anything match this data? And really, it's unmatchable because there's not enough evidence. But one of the things you're trying to do in linked data projects is taking secondary data. Fortunately, election offices have access to DMV data, and here, Maryland DMV data easily attaches on last 4 of the driver's license, date of birth, and name. And over here, their DMV data attaches. And now if you were to look at both sides, you're going to see name similarity, the same date of birth, but now because of the DMV data, you can see that they have the same social, so you can do that. And so this linked data project allows states to pool the data at this nonprofit called ericstates.org. They have and manage this data. And it allows them to give recommendations to election offices. For example, go to Maryland, say your voter may have moved. So Maryland can then know specifically who to communicate with to say, hey, do you still mean to be registered? They might still be legally able to register, maybe in state elections because they own property. There's a lot of different names that go around record linkage. Identity resolution, duplicate detection, patient record matching, marketing match merge, watch list matching, all of these are different terms that are used. And by the way, there's 3 times as many as this. But the term that the world's kind of seeming to settle on is entity resolution. I've defined this and put this out there for consideration, is it's recognizing when 2 entities are the same despite being described differently. There's a lot of differences between these 2 records. Conversely, recognizing when 2 observations do not relate to the same entity despite having been described similarly. Here, there's only 1 letter off. And at the same time, remembering these are all related. Entity resolution is like if you have duplicates in your address book, that's entity resolution. Duplicates in customer databases, duplicates across systems. You've terminated somebody for money laundering in Hong Kong, and they turn up and to the same bank with a different passport in India. Entity resolution problem. Letting somebody into the country where there's 1 letter off in their last name. This is like the Boston shoe bomber, and they were on a watch list, but we missed it because of 1 letter off. These are all entity resolution problems, and it's really everywhere. Once you put on the entity resolution glasses, it's in systems where you're trying to keep bad guys out, where you're trying to do risk analysis, where you're trying to get a 360-degree of customers. And it's also key for things like privacy compliance, where you want to do a data subject access request. Elizabeth Reston shows up and says, hey, what do you know about me? Well, you better be able to find your record if it says Liz or Beth. Entity resolution fits in between data and decisions, but it's not entity extraction, where it's a report, and in the report you have to pull out names and addresses. It's not about address standardization, although that's helpful, or geocoding or matching just names. Those are things that happen before or aren't necessarily entity resolution. And after entity resolution is decisions, analysis of data, case management, visualization, charts, dashboards. And think of it about like this. Is it really three facts about three people, or is it one person with three facts? Imagine how key that would be to any of these kinds of decisions, or for that matter, visualizations. Here is network visualization, where you have a graph of facts, and that's not entity resolved, and entity resolution reduces graphs like this to this. So this is really key when you're trying to make high quality decisions or not waste, say a fraud investigator's resources. Entity resolution is hard. There's hundreds of academic papers. There's universities that have specialty classes on it. I know organizations that have 10, 20, 50, even 100 people working full-time building their own internal entity resolution technology. The commercial products that are out there are very expensive. It's very difficult to get into less than $1 million. And for all these reasons, high quality entity resolutions really been available only to the most elite organizations in the world, the biggest governments, the biggest banks. But times are changing. This is my area of obsession. It's figuring out how to, and what I'm working on is commoditizing this so everybody can have it.